61,000 seats, $2.2 billion, 850 million of it from taxpayers who don't get a seat. And on the first weekend open to the public, before a single snap in the regular season, Bills fans already comparing the sidelines to MetLife Stadium. Basically, the most mocked venue in the entire league. So is Highmark Stadium a masterpiece of football architecture? Or is this the most expensive miscalculation in the NFL history? By the end of this video, you're going to have the numbers to make that call for yourself. So let's start. Welcome in to Football Plus Architecture. Let's get it together. Welcome back to Football and Architecture, the series where we stop watching football like fans for 10 minutes and start watching it like investors. Clubs are assets, players are investments. Timing and leverage decide outcomes long before kickoff. We built the idea around Manchester United in the Premier League. Today we are taking it across the Atlantic and pointing it at pure infrastructure, a building, Highmark Stadium. The new home of the Buffalo Bills opened this summer in Orchard Park, New York. And it might be the single best case study this series has ever had, because literally every principle we talk about, ownership, positioning, risks versus reward, shows up here as concrete and steel. Let's start where we always start, the numbers. Before the opinions, let's start at the numbers. Original estimate back in 2022, when the funding deal was signed, $1.4 billion. Final cost, somewhere between 2.1 and 2.2 billion, depending which source you trust. Either way, that is a 50+% overturn. Here's how it broke down. $850 million came directly from taxpayers, $600 million from New York State, $250 million from Erie County. That is the single largest public commitment ever made to an NFL stadium. The Bills and the NFL covered roughly $550 million in financing, with Terry Pagulia's personal share landing around $350 million. And then there's Bills Mafia itself. Fans put in $263 million through its personal seat licensing. 54,000 of them sold out completely, priced anywhere from about $750 on the low end to $50,000 for the best seats in the house. 4 different funding sources, 4 different expected returns. Keep that in your head, because everything else in this video is really about whether each of those 4 groups actually got what they paid for. That's what we are going to be focusing on in this particular episode. First, let's start with the great engineering, the weather as an asset. We'll start with that. Let's start with the populace. The architectural firm behind this build actually got it right. And it's genuinely smart positioning. Let's start with that. You understand? Now, I went to school for architecture, and that was the best part about my adult years so far. Just learning how ideas then turn into paper and then turn into physical monuments and physical beauty. Buffalo gets about 95 inches of snow a year. Most cities that with that kind of weather problem solve it by building a dome. Buffalo didn't. They built the stadium designed, in the architect's own words, for December. No retractable roof, no enclosed bubble. Instead, a canopy covering roughly 2/3 of the seats, shaped so winds rolls off the bowl instead of dropping into it. Wrap that canopy in a perforated steel facade, 4,400 panels, each one cut in the shape of the Bills, the charging Buffalo logo that we all know. And you have got a wind reduction system that's also a tall piece of branding. That right there is smart business. Then there's the snow itself. The canopy houses, it's described as the largest snow melt roof in the league. Heated pipes, automatic sensors, the whole thing designed to melt snow on contact before it ever becomes a problem. Yes, they finally ditched the 50 years of turf and infrared heaters under the seating decks, and you have got a stadium fighting the weather on every level of the building at once. And here's the part that matters for our thesis. None of this is really about comfort. 750,000 watts of speakers are built directly into that canopy, paired with steep, compressed seating bowl designed specifically to trap crowd noise and throw it back down to the... Look at what Seattle did with the Lumen's Field. Same idea, same result. One of the most hostile road environments in football. Buffalo is doing the exact same math. The moment then Josh Allen is in his prime, when Josh Allen is in his prime, and the front office thinks that this is a championship window is wide open right now. That's not a fan comfort budget line. That's a competitive asset with construction cost. Yeah, we understand that part. No one detail for its soccer heads watching this. One more detail for the soccer heads watching this. This steep seating bowl wasn't designed in a vacuum. Terry Pagula toured Tottenham Hotspur Stadium and specifically asked to be shown the worst seats in the building. The goal at Highmark was 0 bad seats. That's what their goal was. The same standard as one of the most acclaimed stadium designs in European football. That is what they tried to get in the Highmark Stadium. Now let's go into the missed opportunities, because this is the real estate story here. Instead of us flattering the Highmark Stadium the entire time, before a single shovel went into the ground, there was a real fight, years long, over where the stadium should even go. State commission studies looked at sites near Buffalo, in downtown Buffalo, and found stronger potential for what they called economic spin-off. New investment, new development, the kind of ripple effect a stadium is supposed to for a city. Local developers and architects said it publicly. Building in the suburbs again on the same site that the team used to since the 70s would be a colossal mistake. Even the NFL, early in the process, reportedly wanted a waterfront or a downtown location. The Pagulas picked Orchard Lake or Orchard Park. The Pagulas picked Orchard Park anyway, and they were upfront about why. It was cheaper, low-risk option, reuse the land they already had access to, skip years of land acquisition and eminent domain fight, keep the tailgate culture. That's part of the franchise identity. Apparently, is fully intact. However, there are a lot of things that are spoken right now on social media that seems that has also been affected. That's a complete rational decision if you are optimizing getting a stadium built on time and on-ish budget. But it's the exact opposite of the thesis that this series is built on. You had a chance to make one asset, the stadium, catalyze the entire value of the entire downtown situation. Instead, the franchise took the safe, known return and left the higher risk, higher reward play on the table. The trade-off didn't even fully pay off on its own terms. People who supported staying in Orchard Park still admit that the traffic problem never went anywhere. Now, this is an optics issue. Here's where the numbers of the segment one start to bite. $850 million in public money, and the stadium that the money helped build actually holds fewer people than the one replaced. 60,108 seats, down from 71,608. That's 11,500 fewer seats. Highmark is now officially the smallest capacity stadium in the entire NFL. They had the PSL pricing on top of that. Up to $50,000 for the best locations. And you have got a franchise that markets itself on blue-collar Buffalo identity while pricing a meaningful chunk of the same fan base out of their building tax dollars helped pay for. It got worse optically before it got better. Not long after the public financing was finalized, Terry Pagula was photographed on his roughly $100 million yacht. You can't make this out that none of this changes the quality of the building. You would be right. But in this series about positioning optics and part of the assets too. And this was a self-inflicted one for very peculiar and Buffalo Bills in general. But this week's reality check absolutely came down. And this is the part that makes this video timely instead of theoretical, because it is still unfolding as we speak. The stadium's very first public event, the blue and red fan scrimmage on August 8th, went viral within hours. And not for the reasons the Bills wanted. Fans on social media were widely critical of an obstructed field view in specific sections, with one comparison making the rounds that stung a little bit extra. People said it reminded them of MetLife Stadium, historically the most mocked in the league, for exactly that problem. Separately, fans called out the video boards as noticeably small for a $2.2 billion building. Now, to be fair, plenty of other reactions praised the bowl itself, saying the stacked seating layout gives a very strong sight line from almost every level. Both things can be true at once. But remember that the whole Tottenham benchmark from segment 2, the zero bad seats standard, week 1 of the real fans in real seats, already complicated that claim. That's what seating with for people that made this building. The unresolved bet about this situation, the last point, and I want to leave this one open rather than hand you a verdict, because it's genuinely two-sided. A no-dome decision. We framed it as a smart identity play in segment 2, and it is. But it's also an unresolved risk that a $2.2 billion didn't buy its way out of. We have to understand that. Buffalo had already had a home game relocated because of the weather. November 2022, a lake effect storm dumped several feet of snow on Orchard Park ahead of the game against Cleveland. And the NFL moved the whole thing to Ford Field in Detroit. A brand new roof doesn't change that math. It just bets that Buffalo football will be in Buffalo weather, no matter what it is. For me, it's worth more than the identity it cost to the occasional loss in home game. Maybe that's right. Maybe it's the most Buffalo decision a franchise could ever make. But it's a bet, not a solved problem. And you should walk away from this video knowing the difference. So, genius long-term investment, or a missed opportunity dressed up in a 44. And that's the kind of point that this whole series is made of. Every real estate decision is a set of trade-offs. And this stadium just happens to make all of them visible at once. Drop your verdict in the comments. And if you want to see more of this series, round down the same breakdown on the next NFL Stadium project, let me know which one down below. Subscribe if you're new here. And we have got more football and architecture on the way. I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.